Very exciting news if you're a Le Mans Ultimate fan or a WEC fan or a Logitech G user, and I'm going to explain everything in this video because this is free. What you're looking at on screen right now is the Genesis Hypercar for WEC with the twin-turbo V8, and it's free. Le Mans Ultimate are adding it for completely free. It's been a stealth drop. I've been playing it early in conjunction with the reveal by Genesis, and I'm going to let you know my thoughts. You can see I'm playing it here at Catalonia. If you're wondering how Catalonia is in Le Mans Ultimate when it's not on the WEC calendar, that's because this track is part of the ELMS DLC, which is a whole nother beast. But I want to concentrate on the stuff that actually is free here. So the Genesis Hypercar is really interesting to drive. I really struggled with it at the beginning, but you're going to see in this video that I actually got to grips with it and understood how to drive it. And I'm more excited now to drive Le Mans Ultimate now this car is in the game. You can see that it's very pointy and I find it very easy to lose control of the rear. However, once you understand that, it's an incredibly rewarding car to drive. As always, I'm showing you everything in these videos, good driving, bad driving, everything in between. Now, if you're a Logitech fan, this is huge. TrueForce is now in Le Mans Ultimate, and I think it's fair to call this a game changer. I'm going to talk about other aspects of Le Mans Ultimate which have come in the latest update. I do also think to change the game, but I really think TrueForce, if you're on an RS50 or G Pro and you have Le Mans Ultimate, do yourself a favour, re-download the updates for free, jump back in it and just give it a try, because driving on curbs especially and feeling the lockups and the brakes, especially driving hypercars where there's no ABS, feeling those lockups through TrueForce, for me, elevates it above pretty much every other wheelbase. Like, this is no joke. If you like TrueForce, you're going to really enjoy this. TrueForce is not a gimmick in my opinion. Interestingly, when you drive in third person, you don't get TrueForce. Now, whether that's some kind of bug or not, I don't know. But I can tell you when in third person, you don't get TrueForce. So if you want to immediately test the difference between TrueForce and not TrueForce, I recommend you just switch between third person camera and any other camera like the cockpit camera, and you'll feel the difference. The importance of this is when you're maximizing track limits in Le Mans Ultimate, you're often biting that curb, and sometimes when you're overtaking slower traffic, you'll end up on the curb, then maybe the painted white line, and then a little bit of grass as you overtake round the outside. TrueForce gives you a greater understanding of where your car is actually on the track. And when you're looking at other stuff with your vision, so for example, if you're trying to overtake a ton of traffic and you're trying to predict what that slower class is going to do, the TrueForce gives you just more grounding of where your car actually is. You can see I'm looking kind of up there, I think, at the mirror, seeing what the hell is going on behind me, but I can feel where my car is on the circuit. So TrueForce coming is great. There's 2 sliders. I recommend that you mess around with it. Now, if you don't have TrueForce, there's still a ton of updates here that are kind of stealth updates, I'd say, but I've really enjoyed. Firstly, the performance of the menus is obviously better. I haven't enjoyed the sluggish menus in Le Mans Ultimate. I still don't enjoy how, for some reason on my computers, it seems to default the menu music to 100%. I just mute it every time because I've heard it a billion times, but it defaults on. Don't know why that is. But the menu screens themselves are much more zippier, and this is what I wasn't expecting. The game is running better for me than it has done previously. I'm running this in 4K. So we're running in 4K at not terrible settings, and this is not on my 4090. This is on my 5070 Ti, and I'm having a really good experience. So now I'm driving in third person. When I go over on the white line and onto the mud and the grass there, I'm not feeling that through TrueForce. If I was in cockpit view, I would be feeling it, which is quite interesting. So the combination of a free car, the opportunity to buy DLC if you want, and I will get to the pricing of that, and also the general increased snappiness of the game are all great upgrades. And for me, this bodes well for Le Mans Ultimate coming to console. Now, they did say they've improved the loading times of the tracks. I couldn't really verify this. There's still long loading times, in my opinion, and that's going to be a problem for console. You know, the major competition for LMU on PC is iRacing, and iRacing also doesn't have the best loading times, but I think on console they might be less able to get away with it, so there's obviously more work they need to do there. But when you're driving in conditions like this, I can tell you, I've driven this circuit in real life. I've driven Silverstone International in real life, and you can feel the road. You can feel the road. Obviously, you're not feeling it all through your steering wheel. You're feeling a lot of it through your butt and through the seat generally. But here we have a force feedback steering wheel. You see I'm using the Logitech, and you can feel it through there. By the way, I was getting, I think, more oscillations than I was previously. I messed around with the smoothing and stuff like that, but I was still getting oscillations. But I'll take that, and I wouldn't want to sacrifice the detail at this stage. Now, this is what Le Mans Ultimate does best. You can see I'm feeling really in tune with the car now, feeling brave on sending it. And what I like with the Genesis Hypercar is that you kind of turn in, and once you understand that the rear can be a little bit light, you can use that to your advantage in a really sophisticated way. It doesn't feel clunky. It doesn't feel arcadey. Now, I went straight from playing LMU to actually going back-to-back with Project Motor Racing, where a lot of the rears of those cars feel very, very, very light to the extent that you can just arcadey slide it around the corners. You can't do that in the Genesis because you'll end up pushing the front round and everything will go back to front, as you've seen me already spin in this video. But once you understand the balance, you can have a really fun time with the Genesis. I'm glad they've added this car for free. I don't know whether it's going to be the fastest car in a BOP sense online. However, personally for me, this is already, I think, my favourite hypercar to drive. And I've driven all the other hypercars, as you've seen, and some of them I really struggle with. Unfortunately, I really struggle with the Peugeot, which is a shame because I drive Peugeot in real life. But I really do like driving the Cadillac hypercar. And again, this experience I'm having here is probably the best hypercar experience I can have at the moment. It's better than Project Motor Racing because of the aforementioned handling. It's better than iRacing, I think, because it just feels more inviting as a game. If you have a look at the UI here, to actually smash into that Alpine, if you have a look at the UI, and there we go, we lose the back end. Look at the UI. You see on the left-hand side, many of these drivers I've spoken to, interviewed in person, like they're real people, they're real personalities. You can see the bottom left, like the whole MFD, I think is just a bit more up-to-date than iRacing. The interior of the car looks good as well. And it's getting to the point with the performance where it's now being fairly reliable. My issues with Le Mans Ultimate in the past, remember, I bought Le Mans Ultimate with my own money at launch, and it was very buggy at launch, very kind of like graty to play, and like the loading screens took about 20 decades to actually load out the track. We're a long way from that now. Although I think they pretty much arbitrarily went from early access to full release, you're going to see here some aspects of the game are still not complete yet. Like, this is coming into the pits here. Now, you could say this is what would happen in real life as well if this were to happen, but you can see cars getting turned around, and this is where things get a little bit comical. Now, I haven't seen this happen before in iRacing, which shows that, you know, the iRacing AI is pretty good, but this is now absolutely comical. It's a very expensive traffic jam in the pits. I'm actually going to get helpfully pushed along by a... No, we're going to get bashed into 499p. It's a Lexus going to push us out. There's a BMW WRT might help us as well. And the Aston Martin is now inside. Here we go. Here comes the Valkyrie pushing us along. The heart of racing for sure. And you can see this is like, you know, this is not the finished product. However, I'm not docking points per se from Le Mans Ultimate for this. In my mind, it's still a work in progress because I bought it in early access. It's always going to be an early access game for me, and I think that's just a reality of when you buy a game. I bought ACC, you know, not at launch, so that was quite a polished game in my opinion, in my perspective, but people who bought that at the outset of early access remember it as more of a buggy game. So this is where we are with Le Mans Ultimate. Good that free cars are coming. Good that there's like plenty of DLC to get stuck into if you're really enjoying the game and you want to spend more money. Good that they're working on performance. I am going to test this in VR as well. I'm really curious to see whether this has improved the VR performance, because I could never get really solid VR performance out of Le Mans Ultimate without having to crop the window in my VR headset. If that's changed, that's potentially a game changer, because you can see being in this Genesis Hypercar is going to be much more immersive when you're actually in VR and you can look around. So I would recommend, if you've got Le Mans Ultimate and a Logitech base, 100% re-download it, get back on it. If you've got a Logitech base and you haven't bought Le Mans Ultimate, I'd strongly consider looking at the pricing and think about whether you want to jump in at this point, because the TrueForce is very, very, very good. I'll try and put a instant gaming link in the description if there's a deal at the moment. And if you don't have a Logitech base and you haven't bought Le Mans Ultimate yet, I would just kind of watch this space. Like they're keeping improving things. Watch the space. Maybe at some point they'll say Le Mans Ultimate 2.0. I think the big test will be when they do the Le Mans Virtual. When they do the Le Mans Virtual, which is a big 24-hour esports race, the last one they did, Max Verstappen basically told everyone to uninstall the game. That will show that they're confident in Le Mans Ultimate. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you want to see more Le Mans Ultimate on the channel. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.